Hello there, YouTube. So, I didn't think I was going to make any more of these OGL D&D videos. I thought this was a done topic. There were other people covering it, people who have larger audiences that actually produce stuff that they sell through various different means. They have a lot more involvement in the OGL. They have a lot more stakes in this argument. And they've been covering it well. And in fact, there's a few people I will link below that have broken this news already. But it is currently 2:30 in the morning, and about 4 or 5 hours ago, Wizards of the Coast completely backpedaled. We've won. Believe it or not, they have decided that not only are they going to completely backpedal on the OGL issue, they're not revoking OGL 1.0a, not that they could anyway, I'm fairly sure that's not legal. They decided to invent the word irrevocable in order to create this ability to revoke it, because by saying, well, it doesn't say that it's irrevocable, yeah, but it says it's perpetual. Which means the same thing. If it's perpetual, you can't revoke it. That's not what perpetual means. You can't deauthorize it. They claim that you can use any authorized version of the OGL. Doesn't mean that you can deauthorize. That's not compatible with the word perpetual. So yeah, this is the kind of shit that they were trying to pull. But anyway, they've decided that they're not going to do that. They're not doing an updated OGL. They are leaving OGL 1.0a intact. On top of that, they're also adding the entire D&D 5.1 SRD, which is all the game mechanics, to a Creative Commons license, which is a license that they do not own. Creative Commons effectively makes it public domain. I'm fairly sure that all of these mechanics were public domain anyway. I have an insect bite here. It's really distracting me. Anyway, I'm fairly sure all of those mechanics were things they couldn't copyright anyway. They've pointedly not put spells, races, and monsters into the SRD that is going into the Creative Commons, even though the vast majority of those they also don't own. Even the ones they think they own, they don't own, as I've discussed in previous videos. So yeah, they are making everything pretty much public now. And this is a good thing. One of the things that I didn't discuss in my video too much, I think I may have covered it very briefly, was that whilst all of the OGL stuff was being slowly backpedaled, they then tried to double down on the diversity bullshit woke argument to try to make it so that they could refuse a license to anyone who did any content that they found offensive or discriminatory, without defining what offensive or discriminatory means, which means that they could remove the license from anyone. One example that I used is, imagine that Wizards of the Coast gets bought out by a fundamentalist Christian group, and they decide that it is offensive to include gay characters. If you write any module that includes a gay character, that's offensive, and they can remove the license and prevent you from using the system. That could happen. That is entirely possible and reasonable. There are companies out there that hold those beliefs right now that would have enough money to buy out Wizards of the Coast. This could happen. So whether or not you believe in Wizards of the Coast's specific definitions of offensive things, and I use that as an example because most of the people who would go, oh, no, this is all for inclusion and to stop bigotry, most of those people are going to be avowedly pro-gay rights, as any reasonable person should be. So using that as an example shows how it can be twisted to someone else's worldview. Just because it's your worldview that may be being perpetuated now does not mean that that's the way it's always going to be. So I like to throw that at leftists to make sure that they realise that just because they currently hold a lot of the corporate cards, that doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. The tide is turning in a lot of corporations, and you need to get with the free speech argument, because otherwise you'll be the one silenced next. So yeah, this policy is now not going to be pushed, which is a good thing. they're also not worried anymore about defending themselves against big corporations that are going to steal their IP and turn it into NFTs, which was a complete smokescreen and something they were never worried about. Wizards of the Coast don't give a shit about that stuff. They never did. Hasbro, in fact, are actually pro-NFT. They've been making NFTs and trying to sell them themselves. So that was nonsense. This backpedal is a good thing. It means that I will probably go back to using some D&D stuff in some ways, and I'll still make the occasional thing for D&D. I'll run the occasional D&D game because the OGL is intact and is still the same as it has been. However, I'm still gonna remember one important fact, and that is that it doesn't matter that they've completely backpedaled. The people who put this in place are still in power. And while they're still in power, the mentality that tried to steal everything off the player base and tried to control and cage in the player base and shake them for every penny that they were worth, they are still in power. And while they're in power, that means that they're going to wait for the next opportunity to do it all over again. So I'm going to still look at the Orc license from Paizo. I'm still going to be looking at other systems. I'm still going to be building my own system. And I've actually really enjoyed what I've been building in my own system. But I'm also going to make D&D videos and D&D content because now I can make videos on that without worrying whether or not they're going to try and slap me down with some kind of copyright bullshit. Because they can't. So yeah, that's the way it is for me at the moment. I'm gonna see what my custom system looks like after a couple of weeks. I've still been working on it, and I'm really liking where it's going. I've borrowed a few elements from Pathfinder, and I've borrowed a few elements from GURPS, and I'm kind of mixing them together. And I've got a base D20 as the system, and I'm seeing where it's going to go. I've got a few ideas that I've been working on that I've kind of just come up with from nowhere. It's just fresh ideas that I've come up with. I'm sure someone else has already done it, so I'm almost certain that there'll be a system out there that's done exactly the same thing I've done. But yeah, that's my plan anyway. I would say for this to really be a full reverse course, go back to D&D kind of situation, we need one very clear thing. And this is something that I don't think they're going to be prepared to do. I think what they need is simply to do one more thing. And that is they need to say who it was at Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast, who it was who came up with this idea. Whether it was one person, two people, a whole board of people. I don't care who it was, they need to make it public. And they need to be honest about this, no bloody scapegoats. And they need to fire them publicly. They need to say, this person has ruined your trust in the company. Because so long as they're still there, they're still in that position of power, we cannot trust Wizards of the Coast. It's as simple as that. They need to be fired. We need someone who actually cares about that community in the hot seat, in the seat of power. Otherwise, we can't trust that company. And to be fair, you can't trust most companies. As I said in one of my previous videos, corporate greed is pretty much everywhere. But this is a win for us. It's a good thing. I'm glad that I get to make this video, that I get to say D&D is secure and safe for the time being. And I think that they have had a big enough smackdown from the community. I don't think they're going to try anything anytime soon. But we do have to stay vigilant. Just because they're not going to do it anytime soon doesn't mean they might not try it again in 5, 10 years' time. So, don't let this victory let you fall into complacency. Remember that you should always be willing to drop anything like a lead balloon if the corporation that controls it wants to try and squeeze you and control you. If you're a fan of Star Wars and the new Star Wars film is shit and it's being used to perpetuate super political messages and the creator hates the franchise and wants to ruin your favourite characters and things like that, which, let's face it, is exactly what happened. You drop Star Wars like a bad smell. You just ignore it. It does not matter. They're not going to rush into your house and steal your copies of the film. You've got them on DVD or Blu-ray or VHS or whatever the hell you've got them on. I've actually still got the original VHS of the first trilogy. It's one of the few VHS that I still own. But anyway, same with for me, it was Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I love The Next Generation. I love Voyager. I'm not as much of a fan of Deep Space Nine, but I do really like Deep Space Nine. It was never really my Trek. I watched Voyager first, then I went back and watched Next Gen, and I've never really sat and watched all of Deep Space Nine all the way through. I've watched most of it, but there's still the odd one or two episodes I've never seen. So I've rewatched Voyager and Next Gen at least twice through each. But I like Trek. I like Star Trek. Everything after Voyager I ignore. Enterprise was just not really all that impressive. I can take it or leave it. I'm not really bothered. But everything after Enterprise is actively insulting. So I ignore it. I don't worry. I don't worry about it. I am frankly disgusted at people like Patrick Stewart. He played Jean-Luc Picard for years. He was the thing that made Next Generation special. And then Star Trek Picard takes such a shit all over his character, all over the legacy of the show. And he's clearly doing it, for a paycheck? He can't be doing that because he actually likes the way it's written. Because it's crap. So yeah, that's the way I look at it. I don't idolise anyone. I don't put anything on a pedestal. If you take a franchise and stick it on a pedestal, if you take an actor or a director or a writer or a game developer or anything like that, and you stick them on a pedestal, you are going to make it so that should they decide to start making shite or pushing politics or just treating the customer base like dirt, that you can't turn your back on them. I've learned a few times now. I used to be a massive fan of Christopher Nolan. He was one of my favourite directors for a long time. I watched a lot of his films. I owned a box set on Blu-ray. Then more and more of his films just started to not hit the mark for me. Interstellar was really, really disappointing, but Tenet was terrible. Just awful. And if I was a Christopher Nolan fanboy, I would have to love them. I would have to try to defend them because I've then made that part of my personality. It's become part of my ego. And too many people attach media to their ego and they can't disassociate. So don't do that with D&D. But we've won. We've won this one. We can go back, we can claim D&D as ours, and we can take this victory. Don't be complacent. Don't go rushing back to D&D and go, we won, we can now pretend this never happened. No. We should still take this opportunity to explore other systems, to play around in other areas, to allow competition in the tabletop RPG area to flourish. But we can at least play around with D&D now without worrying that it's being controlled by a miserly corporation that's going to try and squeeze all the customers for everything they can get and steal all of the community's ideas. And that's a good win. So, yeah. This is gonna be my last video on this topic. Please? I mean, surely there can't be anything more to add on this topic. So, I'm going to leave it here. There's a few more videos down below that actually go into exactly what Wizards of the Coast said. I'm going to link them below, so I'm not repeating what they say. You're smart people. I'm sure you've seen those videos anyway. But this is just my take, and yeah, thanks for joining me on this journey. It's been interesting, hasn't it? I'm going to make a few D&D videos over the next week or so, because I've had a few in the works. I've kind of been half done. I've worked out what I wanted to say and what I wanted to record, and then I just didn't record them because of all this OGL crap that was happening. I'm going to put them up now, and they should be interesting. They should be a lot of fun. So I'll see you guys next time. Until then, bye.